live. That reminds me, I gotta change windows on the browser so I don't sit there staring at myself instead of the camera. Somebody eventually is going to create a monitor that has a camera dead smack in the little, teeny little pin camera right in the middle of the monitor. Live on YouTube. I was feeling lonely. That's about all, They're not the kind of lonely where you want to listen to someone else talk. The kind of lonely where you want to do the talking for a change. I've been noticing lately that in spite of my youth of being complained of being, occasionally still have people complain that I dominate the relationship or the conversation. Not to the degree that it was as a child or a youth. And I think I was a lot worse at it then. In fact, the ones who do the complaining now, generally I go, hey, wait a minute. That's BS, because this individual is constantly cutting me off, and I'm just moving a light. This individual constantly cuts me off, and I observe myself continually waiting for a chance to talk, and then having to interrupt, or having to decide that I'm just here as audience, and I'm just putting in some time, and when they're done using me, I can go about my business. And I mean, that's what it feels like when someone dominates the conversation. It feels like you're not really there to talk. And of course, you're not really going to listen because it's what's interesting to them, not necessarily to you. If you're lucky, your brain is interested in the same things. But most of the time, it's uniquely personal stuff that only the babbler really gives a damn about. So you just sit there going, mentally going, I can afford the time. I mean, I'm investing in a relationship. There are these reasons why I'm even wasting my time on this person. It's not therefore a waste of time. It's just not going to be fun time that I spend. And you just sit there and spend not fun time investing in a relationship with someone that for other reasons you want. And sometimes when you go home, you go, I'm not really sure why I'm investing in this person. They're not going to be there for me. They're not really providing any value to me. And I'm not enjoying the time spent. And those are the people you ghost. You can't sit there and go, hey, I'm calling you out because you did this and you did that, and don't you ever darken my door again. Instead, it's kind of like, well, I don't want them to feel bad, but neither do I want to spend any more time with them. And I've been ghosted like that. It's what people do, and it hurts no matter how you're rejected. But it is a reasonable approach to the problem. I mean, rejection is rejection, and there's no two ways about it. I ran into an old friend that, when we were younger, we thought we'd be friends we thought we'd be old ladies in a rocking chair one day. She used to bring that up, that it would be really cool. And then other times when I'd bring it up, she'd be like, oh, I'm not going to live to be old. I'm not going to get old. She never thought she'd even make it to 40. And now she's well past 40 and really feeling her age. Well, anyways, I ran into her on the street after it's been, oh, crikey. Since before the cancer, that much. It's been at least 5 years, probably 10, since I spoke with her. The last time I recall speaking with her, the relationship had been on the rocks for a good 10 years. I would complain to her that I didn't feel valued, that I felt more like a tool and less like a friend, that I felt like I was being put in the bank or something, as opposed to actually actively being a friend. But I felt like the only time I heard from her was when she wanted something from me. 2 years go by, I get a phone call. I have the flu and I'm feeling too sick to take my laundry down to the basement. Will you do my laundry and my vacuuming for me? Because my house is so dirty and I'm too sick to clean. And I did. And I remember one time, I'm lonely, it's Christmas and nobody cares about me and I'm all alone and I get no presents from anybody and it just feels so alone. And so I went out and I don't remember what I spent, but I went for cheap stuff that was fun. I went for the idea of having as many wrapped up boxes as I could. And I think it was something like 20 or 30 boxes of all sizes, from tiny to moderate, that I individually wrapped each Christmas present. So I paid for them, selected them, wrapped them, and brought them over and presented them. And she had them under her tree during Christmas. And I got to go over on Christmas Day and watch her open them. And it was a blast. No complaints. Love it. But I've never received that kind of touching compassion from her. That level of thoughtfulness. She didn't ask me to do that. She was just whining about how she felt about Christmas. And I just decided of my own volition to be loving and thoughtful and caring that way. And I don't feel like I got proper credit for it. I mean, yeah, she said thank you and everything. But later on in the relationship, the whining about not being loved enough was coming back again. And I was like, what am I, freaking chopped liver? I'm not loving you enough? This is the same kind of a woman that if a guy is interested in her, she keeps him just off the edge of acceptance, like to where we can have a certain level of intimacy, but it's not a relationship, and don't you ever mistake it for one. She'll hold them there. And if a guy's unavailable, she will chase him relentlessly, no matter to whom he's married, including a relative of hers, in order to get his attention. So if he's interested, she's not. If she's not, he is. She is. If he's not, she is. I don't know what that's all about, but essentially what it says to me is a person who holds people in slots for use, as opposed to wrapping themselves around with people who give them pleasure and or recognizing the reciprocal nature of a proper relationship. So I remember complaining, I hear about all these times you've gone out with people and I'm lonely, I need good times. Invite me along, please. Oh, sure, I will. Or, well, it's the work, it's the work crowd, you wouldn't fit in. Fair enough. But a few times I've run into her with people that were not the work crowd and were LGBT, LGBTQ and artists, and generally LGBTQ artist, hello, somehow, and and disabled. She had a friend who had a mental disability. Well, we call it mental illness. I actually prefer to call it a disability. I don't think it's fair to call it an illness. Now, a wheelchair user is disabled by his illness. So I guess the mental illness makes him mentally disabled, makes him disabled. At any rate, differently abled friend. And yet she seemed to treat me like, rather like a place you go to visit to see something unique. She was the one that once told me that people were talking about me when I wasn't there and naming me by using my first name and the word the article the in front of it. So not, have you heard about, or do you remember that time when Joe, my dead name, of course, because that's the name I was going by. Do you remember that time when Joe was wearing that, had a mohawk, or I don't know. But no, they didn't say when Joe, it was the Joe. Except because my dead name is so exotic and unique, it became a single solo solitary category, as though I am the one of a kind of my own species, not a human. And the species that I am is subhuman. It's okay to talk about me as an object. It's okay to exclude me from events. And I mean, if everybody in the room knew me well enough to talk about me, where was I? Why wasn't I invited? I'd have been there. You know what I'm saying? And this was the relationship that I had with this woman. And finally, after, yes, I remember, I was sitting at the sidewalk cafe. Well, the cafe was closed. The tables were up. I pulled down a chair. I was just sitting down with my phone, reading, or my ebook. I was reading an ebook, and there was an event on the street. So a lot of people were showing up. It was a street fair thing. And she shows up and finds me. It's like, oh, how are you? I haven't seen you in ages. How have you been? Huh? And oh, I haven't been too good. I've had this problem, that problem, and the other problem. All of them petty, by the way. The kind of problems you expect a teenager to have problems with, but an adult to just, save that for the person you're intimate with. Oh, well, I've been all right. Having a little bit of a hard time with a breakup, but I'm sure I'll be okay. It's like, oh, I got dumped and I'm so alone and it's so awful. No, heartache sucks. In a teenager, you expect that, but in a grown adult, you expect them to kind of take it in their stride because, we're not having a help you get over your boyfriend. We're having a sudden run-in on the street. It's not I'm autistic and I know it's inappropriate. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, she says, are you going to be here a little while? I said, sure. She says, I want you to meet some friends of mine. Okay, sure. I used to go back to reading. She's done this to me before, and I've never really thought about it. It's like, she wants to introduce me to people, and I haven't connected that, but then why am I never invited along? She shows up with a couple of people, says, oh, and she's got this look on her face like she's revealing a stage show. She's got that P.T. Barnum look on her face. This is that person I was telling you about. Okay, she's talking about me when I'm not there again. I'm doing that right now. I haven't told you her name. I mean, she doesn't do the internet, so I'm not too worried about her seeing it, but anybody who knows her as well as I do will know exactly about whom I'm speaking, which just speaks to the truth of the character description I'm giving. So she tells them who I am and, asks me questions for them because they're both acting really awkward and shy, asks me questions about myself, and I don't remember the content of the questions. Because when I'm in that situation, most of my brain power is being expended just handling the conversational stuff. That's the autism. It doesn't happen as automatically as for other people. It's like if I'm a computer, I don't have a video module. My CPU has to do it, so everything else slows down. All the background tasks, including filing away the content of the conversation that we've been having. So I'm not really cognizant of what she asked. And at any rate, I don't think she ever told me their names. She introduced me to them, but not them to me, if you know what I mean. And the interview was over very quickly, and they were toodaloo, off we go. And I just sat there feeling like I had just been a circus sideshow for somebody. And remembering that I often felt that way, and that calling me the Joe, let's just what's a male? The Jehoshaphat. Instead of calling me Jehoshaphat, calling me the Jehoshaphat when I'm not there. That kind of thing. Oh my God, I thought to myself, I'm her personal freak. I'm her open-minded token. And whether you want to call it ableism or bigotry or I have no idea what it is, this woman has got a very distinct separation line between us and them. And them is anyone that isn't fitting within her narrow definition of a normal, healthy, standard human. Somebody who's intelligent, somebody who's socially glib, somebody who's employed, somebody who has all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, and all limbs in working order, and, visually, aesthetically complete and balanced. And it's a strange thing because I've heard her tell me about how She has put out a great deal of energy caring for others. She had a roommate die of a very debilitating disease, and she stayed living in that house with that roommate, presumably taking on some level of caretaking. She said she took on a caretaker role and stayed with this person through to the end. So it's not like this is a person who's never there for anyone. She's just never there for me. You know? I don't know if she'd have been there for me through cancer, but I was already just too angry with her from this recent freak. So I'd say it's been about 7 years. I'm going through the cancer, and she heard about it from someone else, because we still have mutual contacts. And I don't know. I think she did call me just before, when I was getting ready for the hospital, when the news was breaking. So someone informed her, and I didn't take her call because I was still angry with her from this sideshow freak experience on the street that day. And so this was the first time I'd seen her since then, and it was so strange because she's like, "You still the same phone number?" I says, "Yep." "Oh, same email?" "Yep." "Same Facebook?" "Yep." And essentially, are you living in the same place? "Yep." And none of my data has changed, and yet, and she's like, "I haven't heard from her the last few times I've tried to get a hold." And I thought, I should explain why I'm ghosting. I owe her the decency of admitting that I've done it and finding a way to explain it, or I'm not starting an argument up all over. I didn't want to have that conversation. I didn't feel like there was any point in discussing it. I didn't think that any resolution would come of it. I didn't want to have that conversation. It's awkward, it's painful, and I feel like an ass doing it. And yet I felt like I owed it to her to at least clear up any confusions, because I'd had that conversation with her. And the upshot was that she would make empty promises to stop me from complaining. And I didn't need to hear it again. I didn't need empty promises and protestations of innocence from someone who's just going to turn around and be the same flippin' person again. It was pretty obvious from the brief conversation on the street that she hadn't changed one whit. She hadn't matured. So, and I mean, at one point I said, "Hey, you've managed to outlive your earlier predictions." She says, "No, that was you that was always telling me I was going to die young." I'm like, that's not something I would ever say to someone. I said, "No, with your cards." I said, "No, you were constantly expressing that, and I was constantly reassuring you that it was not necessarily true, but that, yeah, it could be. And that if you think so, it's probably true, Anyway, it was like that. I could tell that this person had not matured significantly. So I thought, well, actually, I need to go over to the YouTube channel and check for chat. No. Oh, there's Seawater Witch. Message retracted. Oh. Well, hello, Seawater Witch. Sorry about that. I have to have it off. I have to have the browser off of the YouTube window, or I sit and watch myself in the screen. And that's not nearly as much fun. So then I missed the chat as well. Yeah, so I told her, that I wasn't accepting her calls. And I said, I've stopped interacting with you because I said, I feel too much like your personal freak show. She's like, I says, no. I says, I don't want to make a thing of it. I said, it's not, it's entirely possible that it's something that's going on in my head. I said, I tried to own it as potentially me being hypersensitive about such things, because that is entirely possible. And certainly I am hypersensitive, but I do believe in my heart that it took me ages to accept that I was being treated that way because I was using that hypersensitive as an excuse. And that's kind of a personal gaslighting. It's like I was gaslighting myself. Do I smell fire? You probably smell smoke from your clothes, and you know what your brain can be like sometimes, overreacting, and you're probably anxious, that kind of a thing. Except that I do that with people. I don't tend to do that with my physical sensations, but I do that with people, my perception of what exactly went down in that interaction. And it can take Well, it took 55 years to figure it out with one person recently, that I was actually not dealing with a healthy relationship, that I was not dealing with a legit, honest back and forth, but rather that part of the problem I had with getting along with that person is that they weren't actually trying to get along with me. They were trying to manipulate and use me for habitual subconscious power tripping, because that was this person's particular damage, and that I was wasting a whole lot of mental energy trying to find that intimacy, trying to find that relationship, trying to make that connection. They couldn't. That person's not capable of that level of connection. And I remember that person saying to me, you know, I don't have emotional ups and downs. I don't feel bad about things. And thinking since then, well, no, sociopaths don't. That's clue number one, that I'm dealing with a sociopath. Clue number two is the fact that the sociopath frequently says things that I know aren't true, then tells me that I'm forgetting, that I'm remembering wrong. That's gaslighting, honey. When someone tells you you remember wrong, it's not necessarily gaslighting, but it is definitely something to mark on your bingo card. Okay? If they're telling you you can't remember things correctly, mark it on the bingo card. You're going to have a few to win, but there's a very good possibility you're dealing with sociopath. And if you're worried about it, that's another mark on your bingo card, because you don't worry about that stuff normally. You worry about that when the effect, the stress of their behavior begins to weigh on you, and you start to try and figure out what's wrong with this relationship. Why do I feel like this around this person? So back to first person, essentially tried to gaslight myself for her benefit. You know, I says, and it's not something to work. I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm sorry. And I said, you know, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see you're well. I hope that you continue to be well. I hope you have a good, happy life. You know, I wish nothing but the best for you, I said, but I can't do it. And my heart broke a little when I had to say that, because I always hoped, because I love this person, and always hoped that this person would reciprocate that love. And I don't mean romantic and let's go share a household and adopt a puppy together, but just genuine love. I love hard, and I love easy, and I love often, and it's seldom reciprocated. And that's too bad. It really is. And I realized my life is one of investing in the milk of human kindness and receiving from the dented side of the cup. You know, I have access to public charities the same as every other Joe out there. All of the public dole that is out for the public is available to me. And in my youth, I did receive a great deal of outreach assistance from others. People would invite me for supper, or give me a ride somewhere, or help me repair something, this kind of thing. And I had vitamin C on my face, and I just got some in my eyes. So that doesn't help the crying thing. Yeah, I'm still having a bit of a problem here with it. Stings when the sun shines on it. And so I'm just going, okay, it might be skin cancer. And I put the vitamin C on it, and it stings, and it scabs up, and it falls off, and it's exactly like skin cancer. So I think the mail just got delivered. That's late, 5 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, the upshot is I've let go another old friend, and I really don't want to. Why am I such a victim of sociopaths? Because I love hard, and I love deep, and I give true, and I have a strong history of mental illness, which in my mind, I've never been mentally ill in the sense of, you know, having a screw loose. I have been ill the way you're ill when you catch a cold. I mean, if you catch the flu and you're down for 10 days, do you consider yourself permanently deficient because you were down for 10 days? No, you don't. So why is it if you're down for 10 days from depression, is it absolutely necessarily some kind of permanent lifetime disability? You're going to catch the flu again. I'm going to get depressed again. Hello. You catch the flu because of your environment. I get depressed because of my environment. I get depressed from stress. I get depressed from grief. You know, I get depressed from, I don't know how to put it. You know, I had to take a face break because I was just running into too much criticism, too much rejection, too much falsity. You know, people who post up stuff about reaching out and being there for people, but who are always busy. People who are always quick on the trigger with the gift that says thoughts and prayers and flowers and rainbow bridges, but are never actually there when you put out a call for help. People who are quick to agree when you put yourself down. You know, I use a lot of self-deprecating humor. It's supposed to defray, because I try to present as a confident person, and a lot of people think that's conceit and arrogance. So I use self-deprecatory humor to try and inject a little humility back in. So I'll say something like, I'm really good at XYZ. I says, oh, I probably look like crap doing it. And that's not because I actually have no idea what you think of me. I don't have that, they call it theory of mind. It's something, boy, I'm energetic. That's something that autistics lack, is theory of mind, which I don't understand the term or how it applies. But apparently, people have a fair idea what other people are thinking of them, and where they get that from, I don't know, or how they pick it up. I know what my sociopathic mother taught me people are thinking about, and it's all bad. So if I stop to think about what people are thinking about me, that terrible line of text that I used to listen to as a child, holding on to my mother's hand, she used to say the most horrible things about people passing on the street. It was just right out from the mind to the mouth. Intolerance, bigotry, racism, it was all there. And it was all done in a, oh, I don't hate anybody, I'm just recognizing facts tone. You know, it's not like, those horrible people should be killed. It was more like, why would she wear that? Doesn't she know how awful she looks? When as an adult, I can remember that scene. And I was like, what the hell else was she supposed to wear? Do you have any idea how uncomfortable it is to be that person? Do you have any idea how disabled that person is? Do you even have a clue why that person is disabled? Where do you get off judging? And something as stupid as the fact that her clothes are big. Oh, I guess so. Her body's big. You know, and yeah, anti-fat. And then I heard all about the different dispensations of the races and how there were people who were just born bad and whole families that are garbage. And so all of that runs through my head. It's very important, therefore, not to think about what other people think, which is that theory of mind thing. It's like, we really don't know what you're thinking. I can't know. I don't want it anymore. Facebook was starting to get to me because it was either, like, I would say about 2% of the people I know on, 5% of the people I know on Facebook are in person as presented online. They are the same person in person as they are online. So when they say they'll be there, they'll actually be there. And if they're not, you know why. It's not because, you know, their new show is premiering that night and they got to get ready for it. You know what I mean? It's because they've already committed themselves to someone else. And the rest of them just use a lot of my energy. So much of my time was spent making sure that I clicked like here, said something nice there, something supportive the other place. And I wasn't getting the same thing back. I was spending 2, 3, 4, 5 hours in a day just trying to think of something nice to say to people. I wasn't getting it back. I was getting it back from some of them, and that 5%. But I just thought, this investment in my time is getting ridiculous, and I'm coming away from it feeling lonelier than if I just wasn't doing Facebook at all. So I finally, I was riding my bike, and I was just thinking and stewing, and I was feeling so angry with the world. I couldn't even say nice things anymore. I couldn't, and I just, face break. Time to take a break from Facebook. It's time for a face break. I'm still on a face break. I'm posting via Instagram and that sort of thing, but I'm not active there, and I'm not checking notifications. And that's, that's a face break. Oh my goodness. I am still in a very negative state about the world. I've been saying things like, I hate the world and life sucks, and that Louis Armstrong song, Wonderful World. Why is the world wonderful? Simply because there's clouds in the sky and trees growing up. It's still a crappy world. People are crappy. On the upside, those two nasty little murderers from BC have been found dead. So that's one problem solved. We don't have to spend money on a trial. We don't have to spend money housing and feeding them. They're gone. I can't wait to find out if it was a grizzly or a polar bear or something. I'd love it to have been a bear. But it kind of sounds like they might have done something stupid and drowned. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm all run down. I think I got it out of my system. Because when I go to visit a friend, I inevitably listen to their troubles. If I tell my troubles to my friend, even if they don't say it, I feel like I'm whining these days. But very often I am accused of whining. And yet I'm not allowed to tell someone else they're whining. How does that work? People are allowed to tell me, you're whiny, your problems are petty, you complain too much, you dominate the conversation, and I'm not allowed to say it back. I'm not allowed to even notice it. Because when I have on occasion, can I get a word in edgewise? They hop right back at me. I almost never get to talk. You do all the talking already. Again, why am I stuck associating with sociopaths? There are too many of them. It's probably the case that sociopathy is such a successful strategy for a human that there are a lot of sociopaths who are such a borderline that they only have a problem with outliers like me. That the average group of humanity they just sort of work it out like Big Brother and Love Island and whatever else, these social TV shows. They just kind of, they dance on the dance floor from one sociopath to the next with a few victims in between. And that's probably the issues that it is a very natural, normal way for a human being to be. And I simply can't cope with it because of the autism. I think so. Thank you. By speaking live to you on YouTube, I just figured that out. And it's going to help me a lot to stop feeling quite so negative about the fact that there's so many sociopaths. It's like, well, actually, that's probably human normal. I mean, one thing I do know is I'm not human normal. Yeah, I would take a pill and become human normal, just for the ease of living, because I'd be employed. I'd be oblivious. I wouldn't be woke anymore and have all of this awareness of what sucks about A, B, C, D all the way through the alphabet. It's gone to the point, and I saw a joke about this once, and it's true. When you become so woke, you can't enjoy anything anymore because you're too aware of the damage being done on the side. It gets much harder to be you. And I had this problem as a teenager. It was the source of my depression. Feeling bad about being a human because of what humans were doing to the planet. I mean, I was all 14 years old and I was already figuring that out. And it hasn't gotten any better. I haven't learned to stop caring. Emotion isn't something you decide to have. If you do, that's the sociopath. Sociopaths choose their emotions. Empaths are driven by them. So anyway, I've got another 50 years to go here. I told someone that once. 52 I was trying to count because my mathing is, I can sit down and figure it out how many years between now and then. But they're like, that's oddly specific. And I says, I know exactly when, where, and how I'm going to die. I don't know where geographically. I don't know where I'll be living at the time. But I know that it'll be in bed of a stroke, 2:45 a.m., and the date I'm keeping to myself. But yeah, I know when and where and how. And I'll fill you in before I end this video. When I was a suicidal child, and I started conceiving of suicide, I remember laying in bed. I was probably 9 or 10 years old, putting myself into a coffin pose, imagining my body being loaded onto a gurney and into an ambulance, the sirens going, and being declared dead. And I tried to meditate deeply and imagine deeply that this was real, thinking if I could imagine myself dead, I could die. That I would be dead. That I could kill myself mentally. By mentally imagining myself dead, I would become dead. So, suicidal at a very young age. And after some more concrete attempts, swallowing too many aspirins, for example, I don't catalog. I never cataloged it, but I think in my youth, before the age of 25, I attempted suicide a half a dozen times. And there's been a couple of times since then that I have attempted in some fashion or another to end my existence. And it's not because I hate myself, it's because I hate my life. There's a big difference. I don't like the world. Like me. I think that if there were more me in the world, I would like the world better. Just to stop the world, I want to get off. And I also had a very deep belief in God. I've always believed in a deity. I've always had access to awareness of a deity and felt like I could communicate with that deity and receive answers. And I don't mean that I'm sitting down having a cup of coffee with a corporeal or a spiritual something, but that in my head, this conversation's back and forth, and not in a schizophrenic way. It's very much like imagination, but feels like some of the ideas are coming from outside my mind, and it could be my soul talking to me, it could be some psychic connection to all of the awareness of humanity, and who really cares? That's a different conversation. So I was having a conversation with God. We'll simplify this dialogue now. God representing this other awareness that has wisdom I lack and knowledge that I lack. It feels like an other person. When do I, complaining about being alive? And I don't remember the conversation, but I remember the answer. You're going to live to be, and I'm going to leave that number off of YouTube. I'm not going to say it out loud. I would say it to you in person. And I think it was along, I'd like to die now, but I'm probably going to live to be blah, blah. And it was an oddly specific number. And that stayed with me. And over the years, I've meditated on it. I don't like using the word meditation because I always thought meditation was some strange and complicated thing involving staring at candle flames and chanting and suddenly leaving your body and physically seeing your body or physically or actually going your whole self as though you've acquired a new body going somewhere else. And since then I've learned that meditation is really just the way I think. That for other people is unusual. Anyway, so I meditated on the question over the years, and gradually in time felt that I had worked out the where, the when, and the specifics. Yeah. And I know the length, but not the quality of that life. I can really screw up the quality. You know, like a failed suicide attempt where it blows off half your face, for example, to where now you need to be spoon fed or feeding tube fed or whatever. And so the quality of your life has been severely affected. But the quantity has not. You know, or living an unhealthy lifestyle so that you spend a larger percentage of that life bedbound in nursing care, you know, or that kind of thing. The quality can be affected, but not the quantity. So I try to live my best life because I'm stuck here. And I know how long I'm stuck here. I'm stuck. And that has actually motivated me to put a little more effort into trying to make it a nicer world for myself. A nicer world in a variety of ways. I make it a nicer world by trying to be nice to people. That's where I become the sociopathic victim. I try to make it a nicer world by noticing what's good about it. So a lot of time I do the optimism thing on myself. Oh, I see trees of green and clouds of white, bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I've done a lot of that. And I surround myself with things that please me, like this lovely sparkly on the back of my phone and the cute dogs. And so, I give myself the courage to do bold things, like driving across the country with a smart car, because these things affect the quality of my life, and that's the only control I have. I cannot control what other people are going to do or how they're going to treat me. I cannot control how they're going to perceive me. I cannot control whether or not I'm going to have my share of access to global resources of food and shelter and comfort and pleasure and human companionship. I'm not in control of any of that. I'm only in control of the things I have the courage to chase and pursue. That, you know, what am I going to do now, here, today? That's what I have control of. I'm not even in control of how much energy I have, or which limits my choices. So, yeah, I'm ready to hang up this live stream now. I actually feel good. I feel better than if I had been talking face to face, interrupting me and or asking questions and or advising or correcting or trying to give me feedback or perspective, or gee, you're whiny, or yeah, we all have that problem, suck it up, buttercup. You know, that sort of stuff creates such a stressful conversation for me that I don't get the release that I'm looking for. The live stream, however, has. And oh, I see. Okay, let me see. I'm going to address these comments. Seawater Witch, sociopath. I think sociopaths are infinitely happier, and that's one reason it's a more successful strategy. Less stress. They're happier, yeah. It is nicer being a sociopath, but humanity can't run on selfishness. We need a mix. We can't run on complete empathy because then we're all paralyzed by each other. So we need our sociopaths. They get stuff done. They create stuff. They sit down and get grunt work done. They've got a lot of value. And not only that, but sociopaths manipulate people very often through their generosity. So they're a person who desires and grasps resources, whether that's power, money, or all the grain in the village. The sociopath is into that. And then in times, there are times when they need to garner support, and then they dole it back out. So they can be very useful. They're the people who commission art. They're the people who donate big sums of money. We need them. Sociopaths, just a pain in the butt, that's all. But they think I'm a pain in the butt. Now we've got Rabbit Play, wants to go on and on about Fortnite. Oh, and call me a granny. Let's see. Oh, telling me to shut up. Now, given how easy it is to get away from the live stream, I wonder why on earth they try to make me stop it. They're not. They're just trying to get my rise. But I was watching comments. Okay, and then we got SPLSH asking me if I'm 500 years old. Take a 0 off and add a few years. I'll be 56 in November, and I'm perfectly comfortable being an old person, you ageist. You little brat. I can do ageism just as well. I personally think the older you are, the more value you have, because you've been invested in and you've acquired more kindness and courtesy. You are more enjoyable to be around. So the younger you are, the less value you have. And it's really hilarious for a little kid to be trying to devalue me because I have more years. Like, it doesn't work that way. You know, maybe you don't want to sleep with me, but honey, I don't want to sleep with you. You probably kick. So, anyway, thanks, Seawater Witch. Nice to see some good stuff. And, yeah, all right. I'm going to cut it short. Thanks for watching me, guys. I feel way better. And I'm also a half hour late to feed the dogs. So, let's see. Where's end stream? There it is. Bye! Yes, I'm sure I want to end. Bye!